They say history is written by the victors, but the stones of Malaga remember differently. Beneath the sun-baked ruins of southern Spain, whispers still echo through the catacombs, echoes of fire, faith, and fear. The year was 1487, and Europe stood at the edge of transformation. The Moors had ruled Al-Andalus for nearly 8 centuries, their cities glittering with science and art, while the rest of the continent slept in medieval shadow. But now the light was fading. The armies of Ferdinand and Isabella, crowned with holy purpose, marched under the banner of the cross. And their next target was Malaga, a fortress of immense pride and unbroken defiance. The siege that followed would be one of the bloodiest in the entire Reconquista. Yet what few realize is that the battle for Malaga was not merely a war for land, it was a war for souls. Low strings hum beneath the narration as we move across the Iberian Peninsula. Smoke rises from distant towers. The Catholic monarchs have already taken Ronda and Loja, one by one. The Moorish strongholds of Granada's western frontier crumble. But Malaga is different. Built upon ancient Phoenician foundations, the city is surrounded by walls so thick that legend claims even cannonballs wept against them. Inside, the Emir of Granada has left command to his governor, Hamid al-Zaghail, known to the Christians as El-Zaghail, the Valiant. A warrior seasoned in endless wars, El-Zaghail refuses surrender. He knows what awaits if Malaga falls: forced conversions, exile, or death. From their camp, the Christian soldiers gaze at the city's gleaming towers, shimmering in the summer haze. They see more than walls. They see a prize sanctified by the Church, a jewel promised to God. The Vatican had already taken interest in this campaign. Secret correspondence between Rome and the Spanish crown, later hinted at in fragments within the Vatican Archives, described Malaga not only as a military objective but as a threshold of heresy. Some chroniclers even claim that ancient manuscripts of Islamic, Jewish, and pre-Christian origin were rumored to exist within the city, hidden in libraries beneath the mosque, fortress of Gibraltar, knowledge forbidden by the Church, knowledge that must be either seized or destroyed. The cannons roar, smoke fills the air, the siege begins. Day after day, Christian artillery pounds the outer walls. The Moorish defenders, outnumbered and outgunned, return fire with desperate precision. The harbour is sealed. Famine creeps in, and still the crescent banner of Islam flies defiantly above the battlements. But beneath the chaos of war, another battle unfolds, a spiritual one. Priests bless the Christian ranks daily, sprinkling holy water over their armor, promising absolution for those who fall. Across the lines, imams raise their hands to the sky, calling the faithful to endure, to defend the last breath of Al-Andalus. Somewhere between cannon smoke and prayer, humanity disappears. The nights grow darker. Eyewitnesses would later recall strange omens: comets streaking above the battlefield, phantom lights seen over the sea, and voices carried on the wind that sounded like lamentations in forgotten tongues. Some even said the Vatican's emissaries, cloaked figures who never fought but always watched, moved among the Spanish camps, documenting each moment of destruction. Their mission, according to later Vatican records, was preservation. But what they preserved remains unclear. As Malaga's walls begin to crumble, El-Zaghail receives word that no aid will come from Granada. The Nasrid capital, trapped in its own civil conflict, cannot spare a single soldier. Alone Malaga prepares for the end. The city's people, artisans, scholars, merchants, and soldiers, take refuge within the Alcazaba and the mighty Gibraltar fortress. Inside its chambers, the last defenders light candles beside sacred texts, Khan scrolls of philosophy, and strange manuscripts said to have survived from the time of the Visigoths. They pray that God will remember them, even if history forgets. Music softens. The camera of the mind drifts to Rome, deep beneath St. Peter's Basilica, where corridors stretch endlessly into darkness. The Vatican Secret Archives, now called the Apostolic Archive, holds millions of documents most unseen for centuries. In its earliest inventories, one record describes parchments seized during the conquest of Mycenae concerning Moorish cosmography and heretical science. These parchments have never been made public. The question lingers, what knowledge was taken that day beneath the burning Andalusian sun? And why did the church bury it so completely? The siege drags into its second month. Hunger becomes the city's cruelest enemy. Mothers boil leather for food. The dead are buried hastily in shallow graves. Yet the defenders do not yield. From his tent, Ferdinand grows impatient. Isabella prays nightly, her rosary clenched with white, knuckled faith. She believes Mycenae is divinely ordained to fall, a sign that God blesses their mission to purify Spain. But what Isabella cannot see is the toll this holy war has taken on her soul. Chroniclers wrote that she dreamed of blood flowing into the sea, and in the dream she could not tell whether it was Christian or Moorish blood that filled the tide. Outside the city, vultures circle endlessly. The smell of death rides the wind. Still, cannon fire echoes day and night, and within the ruins of the outer wall, Moorish archers sing hymns between volleys, songs of paradise, of lost gardens, and of the day when their ancestors first came from Damascus to this fertile land. To them, this is not defeat, it is martyrdom. In late July, the Christian army breaches the outer gate. Hand-to-hand fighting erupts in the streets. The sound of steel upon steel mingles with screams and prayer. Smoke chokes the sky. The city burns, yet even in ruin, Mycenae refuses silence. Within Gibralfaro, the last bastion, El Zaghal's men hold fast. Every stone, every wall becomes sacred. It is said that as the Christians approached, the defenders burned their archives, their books, their maps, anything that might fall into enemy hands. But witnesses claim some of the manuscripts were spirited away through underground tunnels that led to the sea, carried by fishermen loyal to the old emirate. Where those manuscripts ended, no one knows. Some say they were lost forever. Others believe they were delivered to North Africa, or perhaps through darker channels to Rome itself. Low chanting builds. The siege is ending, but the story of Mycenae is only beginning. The walls of Mycenae had fallen, but the city still bled. Smoke drifted through the ruins, curling like spirits seeking escape. The air itself felt heavy, thick with the stench of fire, flesh, and faith. By August of 1487, the city's resistance was broken. But surrender did not mean mercy. The Catholic monarchs entered Mycenae not as rulers, but as judges of divine justice. Isabella rode through the city gates in solemn triumph. Her white horse stepped carefully over the rubble of broken homes and the bodies of those who had refused conversion. Priests lined the streets, chanting hymns of victory, their voices echoing against the scorched stones of mosques now draped with Christian crosses. Yet behind the ceremony, something darker stirred. Ferdinand's scribes recorded everything. The names of the prisoners, the treasures seized, the texts confiscated. Among them were strange works of Moorish law, according to one chronicler, written in scripts no one in the royal camp could decipher. They were sent to see Cordoba for translation, and from there their trail vanished. Centuries later, a reference to these same works would appear in the Vatican's Archivum Secretum Apostolicum, a catalogue entry marked only De Malacca Codices Damnati. The condemned manuscripts of Mycenae, what knowledge could be so forbidden that even its existence had to be buried beneath layers of secrecy? Low ambient music, the sound of slow, tolling bells, echoes beneath the narration. In the city's main square, thousands of captives were gathered. Men, women, and children, Muslims and Jews alike. The Catholic monarchs, seeing their victory as ordained by heaven, offered a choice, baptism or bondage. Few accepted baptism, the rest were sold into slavery, a human tide flowing into the ports of Seville and Valencia. Chroniclers describe this moment as both victory and tragedy. It was the end of a civilization that had once built cities of learning, where philosophers debated astronomy under starlit courtyards. Now, those voices were silenced beneath the hymns of conquest. But history rarely sleeps peacefully. A strange rumor began spreading among the Christian ranks that a group of Moorish scholars had escaped Mogalaga before its fall, carrying with them a relic of immense significance. Some said it was a book, others a key. It was whispered to contain knowledge that predated both Quran and Gospel, knowledge that revealed the hidden unity of all faiths, a heresy dangerous enough to shatter kingdoms. According to one legend, a Vatican envoy, disguised as a Franciscan friar, tracked these fugitives across the coast. The account appears in a single surviving letter housed in the Vatican Archives, written by an agent of Cardinal Borgia, the man who would later become Pope Alexander VI. The letter reads, "The treasure of the infidels is not gold but word. It must not fall into the hands of unbelievers again." The friar disappeared soon after. No record of the relic was ever found. In Maglaga, reconstruction began immediately. Churches rose where mosques once stood. The call to prayer was replaced by the tolling of bells, yet the ground beneath the city seemed cursed. Stories spread of strange lights near the fortress at night, of whispers heard in empty streets, of shadows moving behind the altars of newly built chapels. Some said these were restless souls of the slain. Others claimed it was the vengeance of knowledge lost, the spirit of ideas that refused to die. The chronicler Hernando del Polgar wrote that during a mass of thanksgiving held within the captured mosque, a crucifix fell from its altar, shattering upon the marble floor. The priests called it an accident, but for many soldiers it was a sign that God himself was uneasy with what had been done in his name. Cut to Rome, the dimly lit corridors of the Apostolic Archive, candles flicker across ancient parchment. The symbol of the cross rests atop cabinets sealed with iron locks. Behind one of them lies a folder labeled Anno Domini MCDLX6 Fis Malacca. Within, faded letters, papal seals, and fragments of burned vellum. A Vatican scholar once admitted anonymously that some of the seized Moorish manuscripts were not destroyed but hidden within a special collection. Texts too powerful to be read. When asked why, he replied simply, "Because they remember." The music deepens, echoing like heartbeat. As Ferdinand and Isabella celebrated their victory, the rest of the world took little notice of what Emmalaga truly signified. To most, it was another city reclaimed for Christendom. But beneath that victory lay the seeds of something much larger: the unification of Spain under the Catholic faith, the birth of empire, and the beginning of centuries of inquisition. The tools used to silence the Moors would soon be turned inward, against scholars, mystics, even Christians who dared to question. The blood of Amalaga became the ink of a new kind of control. Centuries later, during a Vatican inventory in the 17th century, a curator noted a mysterious entry: Codex Malacensis, bound in black leather, origin unknown. Access restricted by decree of Pope Innocent X. No description followed, no explanation. The codex was never seen again. Some historians argue it was a treatise on Moorish astronomy, others an apocryphal gospel written in Arabic, hinting at the lost years of Christ's life in the East. Whatever it was, its silence speaks volumes. Back in Spain, the people of Amlaga tried to forget. They built over their ruins, buried the names of their ancestors, and turned faith into survival. But under every stone, history still whispered. During excavations in the 20th century, workers uncovered a sealed chamber beneath Gibralfaro. Inside, bones, pottery, and fragments of burned manuscripts. The writing, partially legible, mixed Arabic with Latin and Greek. One phrase stood out: "The light cannot be killed, only hidden. The Vatican has never commented on these findings. The sea sighs in the background, waves crashing against the Andalusian shore. The narrator's voice lowers, almost reverent. The siege of Manglaga was more than conquest. It was a ritual, a transformation of a land from one faith to another, from knowledge to dogma, from diversity to singular belief. And in that transformation, something priceless was lost, something that perhaps even the victors feared. As night falls over the ruined city, torches flicker in the wind. Somewhere beneath the earth, sealed behind centuries of dust and stone, the remnants of Emma Laga's forbidden wisdom sleep, waiting, watching, remembering. The smoke had long faded, but Emma Laga's silence endured. What remained after 1487 was not peace, it was transformation. The city became a wound sealed by faith and empire. The mosques became cathedrals, the gardens of learning turned to cloisters, and the people disappeared into the dust of history. Yet some things cannot be buried, not truly. In the years following the Reconquista, strange stories began to circulate among travelers and sailors along Spain's southern coast. They spoke of hooded monks who arrived by night, carrying crates sealed with wax and stamped with the papal sigil. The boxes, they said, were taken into the rebuilt cathedral of Memlaga, and from there vanished what lay inside them, relics of conquest or relics of knowledge. Within a century, the Spanish Inquisition rose to power, an instrument of fear sharper than any sword. Its inquisitors scoured the land for heresy, for forbidden books, for ideas that dared to question divine order. The same energy that had burned through Memlaga now spread like wildfire across the entire Iberian Peninsula. In Toledo, Córdoba and Granada, libraries were emptied, their contents burned in vast pyres that lit the night like unholy suns. And yet, amid the flames, a single whisper persisted, that some of those lost works had not been destroyed, but hidden. A rumor that beneath the Vatican, in chambers so deep that even cardinals dared not enter, lay the knowledge salvaged from the ashes of Al-Andalus. The hum of a Gregorian choir fades beneath the voice. In 1612, a Jesuit scholar named Father Matteo Calvani claimed to have seen one of these texts during his work cataloguing forbidden materials. In his private notes, later discovered in a monastery near Avignon, he described a manuscript bound in red leather, written in Arabic and Greek. Its contents, he wrote, speak of the one light of prophets united across time, of truths that dissolve the barriers of creed. Shortly after, Calvani was recalled to Rome. He never returned. His surviving letter ends with the words, "If truth is fire, then the church keeps it locked in stone." Music deepens, a low cello murmuring beneath a growing storm. The world was changing again. The fall of Granada in 1492 marked the end of Muslim Spain, but that same year, Columbus set sail westward under the same royal patrons who had conquered Malaga. The gold of the New World would fund the church's ambitions, while the ghosts of the Old World still lingered under its cathedrals. It was as if every empire must build upon the ruins of another, as if conquest itself was the only language power understood. But through it all, the Vatican Archives continued to expand, absorbing the knowledge, the secrets, the spoils of centuries. What began as a repository of papal correspondence had become something far greater, a vault of the world's forbidden memory. Even today, only a fraction of its contents have ever been made public. Over 85 kilometers of shelving, more than 12 centuries of documents, letters from kings, treaties with empires, and manuscripts confiscated from heretics, mystics, and conquered lands. Somewhere among them, perhaps still sealed in dust, lie the codices damnati of Manglaga. And if those pages still exist, what truths do they hold? The light of Andalusian science, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, fused with philosophy and mysticism. Knowledge that once united reason with faith. Knowledge that threatened those who ruled through ignorance. The narrator's tone softens, a mixture of awe and melancholy. Maybe that is why Amalaga had to burn. Not because it was a city of enemies, but because it was a city of ideas. The Reconquista was not merely the reclaiming of land, it was the rewriting of truth. The deletion of one memory to replace it with another. Every empire calls it victory, history calls it conquest. But perhaps it was something far older. The eternal struggle between those who seek to reveal and those who seek to conceal. Low strings fade to silence. The image lingers on the ruins of Gibralfaro, bathed in moonlight. The sea below glimmers like molten silver. Somewhere, the faint sound of prayer drifts through the night, a language long vanished, carried by the wind. Beneath those stones, beneath the churches and the marble squares, beneath the bones of conquerors and conquered alike, the story of Amalaga still breathes. Perhaps within the Vatican's hidden corridors, its last words remain, waiting for eyes brave enough to read them. But the question lingers, if those words were revealed today, if humanity learned what was once forbidden, would we be enlightened or destroyed? They say history is written by the victors. But truth is written by those who dare to remember. The light cannot be killed, only hidden. If you believe some truths should never be buried, if you feel the pulse of forgotten history calling from beneath the dust of empires, then this is your place. Join us as we uncover the stories the world tried to erase, from the hidden corridors of the Vatican to the blood-stained fields of forgotten wars. Subscribe to Unsolved History. Turn on the bell and step into the shadows of the past, where every secret has a heartbeat and every legend hides a truth.